Now, 3 Indian sailors were killed in an American strike. The U.S. military admitted to hitting the boat off the coast of Oman. The attack took place on 9th of June. New Delhi has strongly condemned the attack. The U.S. chargé d'affaires was summoned twice. Indian Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar has, after speaking to his American counterpart, said, and I'm just quoting here, India's strong protest at the attacks by the U.S. Navy in the Gulf that killed 3 Indian mariners. Such lethal actions against commercial shipping are not justified. Now, but U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio refused to admit that the killing of Indian nationals, let alone showing any remorse. Instead, his statement carried a warning. The statement from Rubio's office says, and I'm quoting, the 2 officials discussed recent events in the Strait of Hormuz. The secretary stressed that all commercial vessels should immediately comply with orders from U.S. forces as they seek to uphold peace and security in the strait. He underscored that the violations of the U.S. blockade and the illicit transport of Iranian oil will not be tolerated. Now, clearly, Washington and New Delhi are not on the same page. While the U.S. State Department readout of the Rubio-Jaishankar call focused on the need for commercial vessels to comply with American orders, Jaishankar stressed on the unjustified lethal actions against commercial vessels. Now, separately, U.S. President Donald Trump has accused Iran of drone attacks against Indian ships transiting the Strait of Hormuz. However, Trump did not specify which vessels were attacked. Now, there is fury in India. The families of the sailors who were killed are seeking justice. At least 3 commercial ships with Indian crew members have been attacked by U.S. forces in the West Asia region since 8th of June. The MT said below was transiting the Sea of Oman laden with Iranian oil when a U.S. aircraft fired precision munitions into its engine room, causing a fire, sending smoke billowing into the air and sparking a large rescue operation. The 3 men were found dead following the attack on the Palau-flagged vessel. The U.S. military says the attack came after the crew repeatedly failed to comply with instructions from American forces enforcing the blockade. Now, Tehran, reacting to the death of Indian sailors, called the incident armed robbery and state piracy. Clearly, after tariffs, this issue has emerged as a big point of friction between India and the U.S. And the timing is particularly delicate, coming days before Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is set to meet U.S. President Donald Trump on the sidelines of the G7 Leaders Summit in France next week. White House announced that the 2 leaders would be holding a bilateral meeting. Some tough questions are likely to be raised. And to give us more details on this story, our Assistant Editor of Foreign Affairs, Siddhant Sibal, has sent us a report.
Well, India-US relationship is going through perhaps it's one of the worst phases with the killing of Indian sailors by the American military of the coast of Oman. We know that earlier this week, India had summoned the US Deputy Ambassador twice to lodge a strong protest, and the Indian External Affairs Minister also held conversation with the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. But what is quite surprising and shocking is the readout by State Department that basically has no word of apology. Instead, it uses words that, of course, won't go down well in New Delhi. Now, the entire development coming just days before the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the US President Donald Trump meet here in France. And the big question will be how the meeting will help make sure that the worst is possibly behind us. But so far, there are no elements or no signaling from Washington, D.C. about any such attempt or an apology. Siddhant Sibal for WION in France.